Artemis 2 mission is a test mission of the Orion space capsule.
Artemis 2 will be the first time we put humans on this rocket.
We're going back to the moon because it's the next step in our journey to Mars.
We were always going to the moon.
Pushing ourselves to explore is just core to who we are. That's a part of being a human.
And liftoff. We shall return.
Continuing to test out every bit of Orion.
Coming back to Earth, 7 miles a second.
When humanity sets big goals, we can bring together genius from around the world.
You have the best people on planet Earth putting this vehicle together.
That's what's up.
To innovate for the benefit of humanity and to inspire the world through discovery.
And here we go.
Welcome to Artemis Mission Control here at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. I'm Leah Cheshire Mustachio. Right now, the Artemis 2 crew and Mission Control are preparing to support today's lunar flyby, the first time we've sent humans around the moon in over 50 years.
Integrity, you can use the OEs and your HHP camera for the milestone words at the Apollo 13 record distance.
You'll notice that we pause every time we hear communications to and from the crew. They are the stars for today. This afternoon, the crew will have their closest approach of the moon and will surpass the record. That record just mentioned of the furthest humans have ever flown, set by the Apollo 13 astronauts in 1970. You're looking at a live view inside the Orion spacecraft and at our Artemis 2 crew members. They have just completed their post-sleep period, during which they conduct any hygiene and cabin setup for the day. They also had a chance to eat breakfast before we got into our daily planning conference. The flight control team here in Mission Control Houston collecting information from all consoles around the room that we could relay up to the crew ahead of this monumental day. As you can see on your right, NASA astronaut Christina Cook taking a video of NASA astronaut Victor Glover. We expect to have great views of the crew throughout the day, as well as, of course, the moon. We expect to surpass that Apollo distance record in 55 minutes and 50 seconds. We are now looking live at a camera mounted on one of the spacecraft's solar arrays, pointed to our lunar neighbor. We are currently just 14,200 miles away from the moon and 247,672 miles away from planet Earth.
Houston, integrity for AGA.
Ready to copy.
Carbon dioxide 2.3, oxygen, which has the alarm 26.3, 73.1 degrees, 10.3 psi. And one follow-on question. We understand milestone words will be directly following the conference. Will that take the place of the PAO event, or will the PAO event still take place per the timeline?
Good question, Christina. The milestone words that we exchange at the record distance at the end of the conference will take the place of the PAO timelined activity. So that'll be our moment to talk about this occasion, and after that there will be no more expected PAO words, and you can get straight into your flyby. Copy all AGA.
Okay, thank you. And final clarification, even though it's taking the place of it, it will all just be on OE1 with HHP camera, no additional video. Is that right?
Affirm.
Okay, thank you. Yep, some of us had already heard that. Sorry about the second question. We appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
No problem.
Those communications between NASA astronaut Christina Cook and Canadian Space Agency astronaut and today's Capcom or capsule communicator, the one person here speaking with the crew right now, that is Jenny Gibbons. She is an Artemis 2 backup crew member here in Mission Control, Houston. We are now 4 days, 18 hours, and 30 minutes into the flight of Orion for Artemis 2. The Artemis 2 crew inside Orion lifted off atop the Space Launch System rocket on Wednesday, April 1st from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Those 4 crew members are the first to live and work inside the Orion spacecraft, which they have named Integrity, and have been busy conducting meticulously timelined events. It was a beautiful ascent from Kennedy Space Center. One of those early events was the proximity operations demonstration, during which NASA astronaut Victor Glover, the Artemis 2 pilot, manually flew Orion after having just detached from the interim cryogenic propulsion stage as if they intended to dock. This was practice for future Artemis missions, during which astronauts in Orion will dock with the lunar lander that will take them to the surface of the moon. About 24 hours after launch, 25 hours actually, Orion then conducted TLI, the translunar injection burn. This 5-minute, 50-second burn committed Orion to departing high Earth orbit and set us up for today's flyby. That translunar injection burn also served as the spacecraft's deorbit burn. It slingshots Orion around the moon and sends the crew on a free return trajectory, with splashdown approximately 7:07 p.m. Central on Friday, April 10th. Last night on Flight Day 5, the crew entered the lunar sphere of influence, the point at which the pull of the moon's gravity will become stronger than the pull of Earth's. We've also been getting some great views inside the cabin of the crew members living daily life, from working out to eating, taking photos, and making memories together. But they've also been taking some beautiful views of our home planet and of the moon, and we expect many, many more of those following today's activities. These live views back inside the cabin of Orion, but before we get into flyby, let's take a minute to get reacquainted with our crew. Reed Wiseman is the Artemis 2 commander and a Baltimore native. He's been in space.
I think there was going to be some families heading into the viewing room today. If they end up showing up, could you just give us a heads up when they're there so we can just wave to them on the camera?
Absolutely.
And that was the voice of Reed Wiseman. He has been in space once before as a flight engineer.
If they don't come, you can just lie to us and tell us that they're there. That'd be great, thanks.
We'll keep that in mind too. And I'm sure they'll be here.
Ses varmış. Şimdi bu bizim izlediğimiz Artemis 2 derin uzay görevinin ay yörünge manevrası olacak arkadaşlar. Peki bu Artemis 2 nedir? Amacı nedir? Şimdi Artemis 2 aslında NASA'nın ay programları kapsamında insanlı bir uzay aracını ayın çevresinde dolaştırıp ardından dünyaya güvenli bir şekilde geri getirmektir. Görevde 4 tane astronot var. 1 kadın, 3 erkek. Zaten astronotları şu an görebiliyorsunuz. Görevin öne çıkan kriterleri aslında çok farklı. Mesela bu görev aslında 1972'de Apollo 17'den bu yana ay yörüngesinde gerçekleştirilen ilk insan uçuşu olma özelliğini taşımakta. Şimdi Görevin detayları nedir mesela? Bir zemin hazırlığı bu aslında. İnsanlı yolculukların sürekliliği ve bir ay üssünün oluşturulması için bir zemin hazırlığı yapılıyor. Bu uçuşta ay yüzeyine iniş yapılmayacak aslında. Sadece yörüngesinde bir manevra yapılacak ve kapsül tekrar dünya dünya istikametine geri dönüp gezegene iniş yapacak. Temel hedef bir sonraki aşamalar olan astronotlu ay inişleri, ayda üs kurmalar, Orion uzay aracının SLS roketinin sistemlerinin verimli olup olmadığını tespit etmekti. Şimdi bunlar artık gerçekleşti. Şu an son aşamada yörüngenin yani ay yörünge manevrasını yapmalarına bir 15-20 dakika falan kaldı. Yapmaya başlamalarına 15-20 dakika kaldı. Apollo'nun 1977 yılında çektiği dünya fotoğrafı şeyde bulunduğu noktada çektiği fotoğrafı aynısını aynı konumdan çekmesine de 1 saat var arkadaşlar. Hatta 1 saat bile yok. Bir 40 dakika 35-40 dakika falan kaldı aynı yörüngede aynı konumda fotoğraf çekmesi için. Şimdi yörünge rotası mürettebat ayın etrafında geniş bir tur atacak. Baya geniş. Yani bu Apollo 17'den bile daha uzağa gidecek. Aydan baya bir uzaklaşacak ki insanlı en derin uzay yolculuğu olacak bu. En uzağa dünyadan ve aydan bile uzağa gidilecek. Çünkü yanlış bilmiyorsam aydan bir 8000 kilometre daha öteye uzaklaşılacak. Yani bakalım. Güzel bir şey olacak. Biz 56 yıllık bir gecikme bu. Normalde bu gecikmenin yaşanmaması gerekiyordu. Amerikan Başkanı Nixon'ın dini inançları gereği dini inançlarını bahane ederek Apollo programlarını ve uzay programlarının hepsini iptal etmişti arkadaşlar. Yani 56 yıllık bir gecikme var ki Apollo 18 ya da Apollo 19'du tam hatırlamıyorum. Bu Mars için tasarlanmış bir gemiydi. Ancak Nixon'ın bunu iptal etmesiyle 56 yıllık bir gecikme ile insanlık yeniden derin uzaya gidiyor. Eğer bu yapılmamış olsaydı belki biz 30 yıl önce ayda üsler kurmuş olup şu an Mars'ta üs hazırlığına başlamıştık. Yani üssün inşasına bile başlamıştık ama geç oldu, bayağı bir geç oldu. Teknolojimiz yeterliydi ama yine de dediğim gibi bazı iktidar sahiplerinin dini bahane ederek aslında ki Nixon evanjelisti. İnancı gereği evet bir insanın dünyadan ayrı uzaya çıkması Tanrı'ya şirk koşması anlamına geliyor onlar için. Şu an ki bu astronotlar bile evangelistler için kafirden başka bir şey değil. Geç oldu güç oldu ama sonunda oldu. Bundan sonraki görevlerin tamamını yanlış değilsem eğer SpaceX'in Starship gemileriyle yapacaklar. Çünkü Orion kapsülü gördüğünüz gibi arkadaşlar Orion kapsülü çok küçük. Yani gerçekten çok küçük. Bir banyo kadar. Ciddiyim bir banyo kadar. Ve 4 insan o kapsülün içerisinde yaşıyor. Oksijen, hidrojen, nitrojen, bütün her şey yaşam destek ünitelerinin tamamı her şey onun içinde. Tamam bir şey yapmıyor. Bir zorluk çıkartmıyor. Çünkü sonuçta astronot uzayda yukarı aşağı sağ sol olayı olmadığı için sıkışıklık olmuyor. Ama yine de rahat bir yaşam alanı değil. O yüzden bundan sonraki yani bu aşamadan sonraki bütün ay görevlerinin tamamı SpaceX'in Starship gemileriyle yapılacak. Zaten üsse yapılacak üssün bütün inşaat malzemeleri Starship'lerle gidecek ki Starship'lerin zaten amacı o. Yıldızlar, gezegenler arası yolculuğu veya kargo, lojistiği kolaylaştırmak.
switch places with the crew making observations.
Bir de enteresan bir olay var. Buradaki en kıdemli astronot kadın astronot ki içi beraberinde olan 4 astronottan daha fazla zaman geçirdi uzayda kendisi.
During the lunar flyby today, Orion will provide astronauts with a full disk view of the lunar surface. They'll have a higher vantage point, much farther than Apollo's lunar orbits on average. And these astronauts can observe both holes and large-scale geologic features in a single view. And due to our April 1st launch date and current illumination conditions, the Artemis 2 astronauts have become the first humans to directly observe certain far-side regions of the moon with unaided eyes. Great, thank you. You ready? It's me. That's okay.
How do I, is it all?
We are now 36 minutes until we see the Integrity crew pass the Apollo 13 distance record. And joining me on console, I have Julian Gross, the Artemis curation lead. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
We're very excited to have you. So can you tell me about your role as Artemis curation lead and what that entails?
Yeah, so for the overall Artemis campaign, I'm the Artemis lunar sample curation lead. That means I'm helping NASA to return the next set of lunar samples from the lunar surface. And for Artemis 2 specifically, I'm one of the science theme leads, and specifically I'm responsible, or the voice, for impacts, poles, and landing sites.
Fascinating. So what helped us select the targets that the crew is going to be photographing today?
So we had a plan coming in where we basically made a list of all the available targets during the April launch window, because before you launch, we wouldn't exactly be sure which targets would be visible. And so once we launched, we then were able to cut down on that list and prioritize our targets. And the 5 theme leads came together and really discussed and talked through which
the long lens configured for lunar flyby.
Which targets we could then see and prioritize. And so that made it into our plan. We worked then with timeline to make sure that all the targets are visible. Some targets are time dependent, like Earthset or Earthrise, and some targets will rotate out of view when Integrity starts going around the moon. And so we put these in early so that the crew has a chance to describe those to us.
Fascinating. I cannot wait to hear what they have to say. So we just heard them say that their long lens is configured. That's very exciting. And for us, when we look at the moon from Earth, what features are we seeing that the crew will also fly by today?
Yeah, so I really hope that people on Earth who are in nighttime will look up into the moon tonight. The features that the crew will see that we can also currently see is Aristarchus Plateau. Grimaldi is another feature. They're going to be sort of on our limb. And then Oceanus Procellarum, that really dark, large area on the near side that we can see. The crew is going to see that in the beginning. The more they fly around, the less of that they will see. So those are targets we will hear them describe early on in the flyby.
Fascinating. Well, and the crew has been training for years for this day. And so we're going to hear them make a lot of calls about what they are seeing on the moon. And they're going to use a lot of interesting terms that I myself need some brushing up on. So could you walk us through a few of the things that we'll hear them use to describe the moon, like albedo, exosphere, ejecta, just some of those major terms we expect to hear from the crew?
Yeah, of course. Albedo is basically a term of a reflectiveness of the surface. And so high albedo usually for the moon means bright areas, and low albedo means like darker areas. And so when you look into the night sky, you can see the high albedo areas are the white parts and the low albedo ones are the darker areas. Ejecta is when you have an impact and it ejects or throws out material that then ends up on the surface, and you can see that as sort of rays or ray systems. So you might hear them describe, I can see Ohm, for example, with its rays. It has an isometric rays coming out, and so we're excited to hear them describe that. You might hopefully hear stuff about color or color hues, and so if they can see any changes in those color hues from like white to gray to maybe brownish, we're excited to hear about that. Exosphere is the almost no existing atmosphere of the moon. It's barely there. But there is dust on the lunar surface that can get lofted up through electrostatic forces. And when the sun goes behind the moon, it can scatter forward on those dust particles and sort of like create a little glow on the horizon. And so we're really excited to see if the crew can actually see that.
This is so exciting. Thank you so much for walking through all of that with us. Julian Gross, Artemis Curation Lead, we really appreciate you joining us here today, and good luck to your team.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
We are now MET 4 days, 18 hours, and 49 minutes into the flight of Orion. This view of the moon from the Orion spacecraft as we get closer and closer. We're live here in Artemis Mission Control at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, just about 32 minutes away until the crew surpasses the record set by Apollo 13 as the farthest astronauts to ever leave Earth. This view coming from a camera mounted on the tip of one of Orion's 4 solar arrays. Each array has a camera on its tip, and so we anticipate getting views throughout the lunar flyby. Of course, except during the point of loss of signal when the spacecraft flies behind the moon. Inside the cabin, the crew are configuring the inside of Orion for today's flyby, making sure they have everything just where they want it to help them take the pictures that they are aiming for the science team here on the ground. Coming up in just a few minutes, we will have a pre-lunar flyby conference. During that Lunar Flyby Science Crew Conference, our science officer here on console, Kelsey Young, will be speaking directly with the crew members about their targets, about their goals for today, what they expect to see, and what we are hoping to hear from them. We have a lot of milestones coming up today, so make sure you don't miss them. The first coming up again at 1:56 p.m. Eastern Time, the crew will pass the distance from Earth record set by Apollo 13 in 1970. At 2:45 p.m., lunar flyby officially begins. The crew will have that time on their schedules to begin photographing and providing audio recordings of what they are seeing on the moon. At 7:02 p.m., Orion will make its closest approach to the moon, approximately 4,070 miles away. Of course, all of these numbers are going to have to be confirmed following the flyby. These are estimates, and we are working with orbital mechanics. At 7:07 p.m., Orion reaches its maximum distance from Earth, approximately 252,760 miles away from us all. At 8:35 p.m., the spacecraft will enter a solar eclipse. The crew will become the first to see a solar eclipse from the moon. Ahead of the official beginning of flyby